This is my unfaithful story of forbidden love with my boss. One day I ended up feeling things for my boss. Today I come to tell you everything. I will tell you how I went from being his employee to become his lover. Stay until the end to know this story. So make yourself comfortable, and we ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the little bell so you don't miss any videos. It all started the day my boss, Alejandro, arrived at the office with a different aura. It was not the first time I noticed his presence, but that day something about him seemed more captivating. He was an imposing man, with an intense gaze and a voice that resonated with authority. His hair was neatly combed, and he wore a perfectly tailored suit that emphasized his elegant bearing. For months, he had been the topic of conversation among some of his colleagues, not only for his appearance, but for the way he handled the business with a mixture of firmness and charisma. I, on the other hand, was just another employee, sitting behind my desk, doing my job and avoiding attracting too much attention. My life was quiet, perhaps too monotonous. I was in a relationship with Javier, my partner of several years, but the spark that once brought us together had faded. Routine and lack of communication had created a gulf between us that neither seemed willing to cross. That day, Alejandro called me into his office to review a project. His tone was always professional, but I noticed a different sparkle in his eyes, a warmth I hadn't noticed before. At first I thought it was just my own ideas, but as time went by, those looks became more frequent. There was something about the way he watched me, something that made me feel special, yet at the same time filled me with an uneasiness that was hard to ignore. I have a question for you. Are you liking the video so far? If so, leave us a like and subscribe. Let's keep going. The first time he invited me to dinner outside of work, I was surprised. It was a simple excuse. He wanted to discuss some project details in a more relaxed atmosphere. I hesitated to accept, but his insistence and my curiosity overcame my resistance. Over dinner, I discovered a side of Alejandro that I had not imagined. He was charismatic, charming, and his words seemed carefully chosen to keep me captivated. Dinners began to be more frequent, and what at first seemed like a professional interest soon turned into something more personal. Alejandro made no secret of his interest in me, although he maintained a certain discretion. I, for my part, was divided. I knew that what was happening was wrong, but I also felt an excitement that I had not experienced for a long time. Everything changed one night after a particularly stressful meeting at the office. Alejandro asked me to accompany him home to review some important documents. I agreed, although my heart was pounding at the prospect of being alone with him outside of the work environment. His house was impressive, a mix of modern and warm design. As we talked in his living room, he offered me a glass of wine, and the conversation became more personal. He told me about his marriage, how he had lost connection with his wife over the years, and although they tried to keep up appearances, they both knew the relationship was broken. His words resonated with me, as I too felt that my relationship with Javier had become a facade. That night, when our gazes met and the silence became palpable, everything changed. The first kiss was like a flash of lightning that illuminated my whole world. It was intense, full of desire and charged with repressed emotions. Even though I knew I was crossing a dangerous line, I couldn't stop myself. Alejandro was like a magnet that attracted me with a force impossible to resist. That night marked the beginning of our secret relationship, a mixture of passion and guilt that would define the following months. Before we go on, we invite you to give us a like and subscribe. Let's keep going. Now the good stuff is coming. Every meeting with Alejandro was a whirlwind of emotions. We would meet in discreet hotels, away from the office and prying eyes. With him, I felt a freedom I had never experienced before. He made me laugh, he listened to me, and made me feel wanted in a way that Javier could no longer do. However, the shadow of betrayal was always present. My life became a delicate balance between my relationship with Javier, my work, and the moments I shared with Alejandro. I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't help it. Every time I tried to walk away, Alejandro would find a way to bring me back. His words, his caresses, his way of making me feel unique. Everything pulled me back to him. One day, while I was with Javier, I realized how much he had changed. I looked at him and was overcome with a mixture of guilt and sadness. Javier was a good man, someone who had been by my side in the most difficult times. But our relationship was not what it used to be. I knew I was hurting him, even if he didn't know it yet, and that realization weighed on me like a burden. Things came to a head when Alejandro confessed to me that his feelings for me went beyond what he had imagined. He told me that he thought of me constantly, that I had given him back an emotion he had thought he had lost, and I was moved by his words, but also filled with fear. His words moved me, but also filled me with fear. What did that mean for us? Was he willing to give up everything for me, and I for him? The tension became unbearable when Javier began to notice my distancing. One night, while we were having dinner, he confronted me. He asked me if something was wrong, if there was someone else. I couldn't answer him directly, but my hesitation said more than any words could have expressed. I decided it was time to face the situation and make a decision. I could not continue living in that lie, dividing my heart between two people. I talked to Javier and confessed everything. It was one of the most difficult conversations of my life. His pain and disappointment were evident, but there was also a certain relief in his eyes. We both knew that our relationship had come to an end long before my affair with Alejandro. Don't forget to subscribe and like us for more content like this. Let's keep going. With Alejandro, things were not easy either. Although our feelings were intense, we knew our relationship was built on shaky ground. We spent hours talking about what we wanted, about whether we were really willing to face the consequences of being together. Finally, we decided to give ourselves a chance. Alejandro separated from his wife, facing criticism and judgment from those around him. I, for my part, dedicated myself to rebuilding my life, leaving behind the guilt and pain of my past relationship. Today, Alejandro and I are together, living a relationship that, although it began in a complicated way, has become something real and deep. It wasn't easy to get here, but we are both committed to building something genuine, based on trust and love. Sometimes I look back and think about how it all started, how a simple dinner turned into a whirlwind of emotions that changed my life forever. Although I don't justify my actions, I know that every decision led me to where I am now, next to someone who loves me and accepts me as I am. As time passed, Alejandro and I learned to navigate this new chapter in our lives. Despite the difficult moments, the love we shared grew stronger. We knew we had made mistakes, but we were also aware that each choice, no matter how painful, had led us to find each other. The nights of insecurity began to diminish, and with each conversation we had, our relationship became more solid. We both knew we had to face the consequences of our decisions. But we did it together, with the firmness of those who understand that love does not always follow the expected path. Over time, the scars of our past relationships began to heal. The shadows of guilt that once haunted us began to fade, replaced by trust and mutual commitment. With each passing day, the bond between Alejandro and I grew stronger, and although the road was not always easy, we both realized that we had found something real, something worth fighting for. Today, as I look back, I realize that life sometimes has strange ways of putting people in our path. And although our story began in an awkward and uncertain way, we are now a team, ready to face whatever comes our way. Maybe it wasn't the way I envisioned my life, but in the end, it was just what I needed. If you like the video and this content brought you value, leave us a like and share it with your friends so they don't miss it.